Hello, welcome to the Shinecast podcast where we broadcast our thoughts and feelings. We're your crew.
Mason.
AJ.
Itzel.
Tania.
And Mia is behind scenes.
So today's episode is about growing up and nostalgia. So everyone, what's your greatest concern growing up?
My mind immediately goes to taxes, paying bills, and being on your own. I feel like my parents aren't there to guide me anymore through all of these things, and it's scary going through that process alone.
Yeah. For me, it's just like being away from my mom and my sisters because that's like the thing I've had daily. So without them, I feel like I wouldn't know what to do.
For me, when I was thinking about growing up, I was thinking about, having my own license, having my own car, just getting lit. I mean, just having my own things and not having, my parents watching me around. Really, it was the whole opposite of what you guys are thinking about. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, why I just can't wait. But now if I think about it, growing up at this time, I feel like, yeah, I'm a lot more concerned about my future, how I'll manage it, where I will go in life and stuff like that. So yeah.
Honestly, same here. I'm very concerned about what the future holds because I'm very fearful and a little anxious kind of. Says I don't know what the future is gonna present, So following up on that question, I just wanted to know who had the greatest impact on you, on all you guys, just because you guys were talking about how your parents were there to help you. My parents were there to help me as well, and I also think they left a big impact on me. I just want to know who had the greatest impact on you guys.
For me, it was mostly my history teachers. For my elementary school and my middle school, because they just taught me a lot, and they were always very supportive of me, and they were just always there when I needed to vent, and they knew everything about me, and they always made sure that I was doing the best I can, and that's why I help a lot of kids now. That's why I tutor them, because that's what I want to have on other kids. Yeah.
So I actually grew up in India.
Oh.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in India. So I was born here though. I was born in Napa, but then 2 days later, me and my parents, boom, India. I didn't even know I was on a flight. I think I was probably one of the first kids to newborn baby to be on a flight. Honestly, that quick. But yeah, so I was raised in. I'll say it's a small town. Yeah, it's called Punjab. Jagraon, Punjab. It's near the big city Ludhiana, and so about that town. I mean, a lot of the people were really close with each other, even though we weren't family. And I feel like with all these connections and stuff like that we had with each other, with our neighbors and stuff like that, and then. And the neighbor's kid, they were automatically kind of like my brothers, even though I never had a brother. I'm an only child. But I don't know, this type of connection that I built with other people actually helped me network with a lot more other people in my future. But at the same time, I was in a environment that not a lot of kids had the same opportunity as me. And I feel like that's really important thing because a lot of the people here the immigrants and stuff like that, and then other people don't actually get the opportunities as well. So but at the same time, it's just with the the social life and stuff like that I had in India, everything was just the same. Everything was just everyone was close with each other, no matter what caste they were, what they went through, what financial needs they had to go through every single day. So I feel like that's the biggest factor of me growing up, that I could be around a community so small in a town but so big in the way that we connect with each other. I feel like that's pretty important about growing up.
I'd say the person that had the biggest impact on me was my cousin. Growing up, I was the oldest child, and my parents, they were working a lot. And so my oldest cousin, I pretty much grew up with her, and seeing her be this academic scholar that tries really hard and knows what she wants, has really inspired me. And I think if she can do it without necessarily someone to look up to, then I can do it while looking up to her.
So like, I think I had a very similar situation to AJ. I don't think there's like one person I really could like say that impacted me the most, just because like in American Canyon was such a small town, right? So then I knew all my friends since like elementary school. I knew them from kindergarten all the way up until my senior year, which is right now. So, and another big factor of my like growing up was my mom and dad. So I took a lot of inspiration from both of my parents. I try to take the best from them and try to put it onto myself, just to like I don't know how to put it, to improve myself and like make sure I'm a great person. And then all my friends also kind of just rubbed off on me as well, just because of all the time we spent together. Like I think you start kindergarten at 5, all the way up until like you're 17. Some of your friends last 12 years. That's a lot of time spent together. So I think that's had the biggest impact on me so far. So like,
Oh, sorry.
no, you got it.
Oh yeah, adding on what Mason was talking about parents, I was thinking, yeah, your parents, are your inspiration, because that's the first thing you ever see in life. Your parents. I mean, who's holding you when you're 5? Your parent. But with the fact that our parents do so much, and it's like a repetitive cycle where like the parent cares for the kids, and the kids care for the upcoming children, and the upcoming children care for their upcoming children. So I feel like we're in this cycle where that our parents care a lot about each other, and we get inspired. And I feel like that's really important, because sometimes we don't even like now, like as teenagers, we think our parents are like so aggressive, so rude, or like, oh, like they're so annoying and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they were the people that that made us who we are today, whether it's biologically or even a factor in how how we express our emotions, how we talk to others, how our manners, all these types of things go into play in our daily lives. So yeah, definitely important.
So again, I think what Itzel said was like really like great, because like we spend a lot of time in the classroom as well. I've had a lot of like really impressionable history teachers, because most of my social science teachers, other than like one in 7th grade, have left a mark on me. And I think teachers, especially teachers, have one of the most greatest impacts on people, because a teacher in a classroom can spark that what's it called, that mindset to grow, to keep growing, that growth mindset to keep learning and experiencing new things. So I think like what you said was great, because it shows like how much impact a teacher has on a student.
Yeah, I remember I also had a teacher in India. She was, I don't know what she taught. I think she taught English. Yeah, I think she taught English. Yeah, and I don't know. Supposedly, I looked like a girl when I was like really young. Like, yeah, people used to assume I was a girl instead of a boy because of how like my face looked like. But that teacher actually like she openly kind of expressed myself, because when I was young, I don't know, in a way, when I was like around people in school, or like, because in my class it was not just like the students were not just my age. They were like kids who were like 3 years older than me and 3 years younger than me, something like that. So they're all different types of ages. So I just got scared, like kind of insecure about like, oh, yeah, I don't want to like talk when the teacher calls me and stuff like that, or that. But that English teacher actually, used to help me out a lot when she saw my struggle, but she also like saw how cute I was at the same time as a baby. So like, I don't know what that relates, but like she saw me like struggling a lot, and she helped me express my thoughts in class a lot, and how I talk with others, and how at the same time just help others in general.
All right, so moving on, like, what are you guys most excited for about being adult? I know like you guys talked about like what you guys are concerned about. What are you guys most excited about? Personally, I think I'm most excited just for like that sense of freedom, and like just being able to go on my own. I know I said like I'm kind of concerned about my future and what's gonna like become of it. But like I think that's also like exciting me because like I don't know what's gonna happen next. Like I wanna take that next step and find out like after high school, where am I going? What am I gonna be doing in the next 10 years? Will I get a good job, you know? So like I think just like other than having that freedom, another thing that like excites me is what also scares me.
Yeah.
Like a time machine.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, what's our future, dude?
I'm like excited to like get to know people because I love meeting new people. And since like you're an adult, you can like travel more, you can go out more, you can go to parties, clubs, stuff like that. I'm just like really excited to be able to like grow connections and like just hang out.
I feel the same way. I feel like when I think of growing up, I'm scared of that transition from like teenagehood to adulthood of being 18, early 20s. But past that, when I picture my life as a 40-year-old or as a 50-year-old, I imagine myself traveling a lot and finally being able to do what I wish I could do with my life right now. So I think that's very important, and I'm looking forward to that.
Like where would you want to travel?
Okay, so I want to go to every single continent. I don't specifically know where, but I just really want to actually say I saw the world, you know?
I really want to see the Philippines.
Oh, I haven't been to the Philippines yet, but
I want to go.
like a lot of my friends have, and they say it's really hot.
That's okay. I like warm weather.
Is it?
For me, same thing as what Mason said too. Like, you know, kind of worried about my future, where I want to go, stuff like that. So yeah, you know, I also want to just, you know, from at this perspective, I want to see where I end up in the future. My dad actually somehow found an astrologer or something like that, and you know, searched up my name and stuff like that, and where like, you know, when I was born, and he predicted the stars or something, saying that, oh, I'm gonna be successful or something like that, or that. But I don't know if that's true or not. But but yeah, I am kind of concerned about my future currently. But I feel like that's a factor with a lot of you know, the teenagers and, you know, people who are moving into adulthood. Besides that, I do want to travel as well. I've only been to London in Europe, but I want to explore a lot in Europe. I want to go to a lot of places. Like I want to go to Paris. Like Paris, like it was like right there, and I couldn't go, and I was like, shoot, I want to go.
Okay, so I just wanted to like know like what's the challenge you guys are facing right now, like growing up and like maturing, and what do you guys think the biggest challenge is for like us as teens?
I guess like, the biggest challenge growing up is like knowing when to let friendships go when it's too draining and you can't, like you still want to be with them, but the fact that they're draining your energy and you're not having fun with them anymore is just like the hardest part, because like you've known them for like very like closely, and then you just at some point like stop talking with. That's like the hardest part.
I agree with that, but I'd also say that choosing what you want to do with your life, especially like career-wise. I know not everyone seeks going to college, but everyone does ultimately choose to do something with their lives, to dedicate themselves to something. And it's difficult when you feel forced to choose at 18, 17. You don't really know what you're doing in life, and you don't know how you want to help others or what you want to do in this world. So I think that's definitely one of the biggest concerns overall among all teenagers.
I definitely agree with Tania on that point, especially in my religion or my culture, really. All the relatives just come up on you and say, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? What do you want to do when you're older? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to say? And if you say, I don't know, they're going to think you're like dumb or something. Or like, oh, like this kid's not passionate. But in the reality, I feel like, yeah, we're like, I feel like we're still, you know, even as teenagers or young adults, I think we're still too young to decide what we are. I mean, yeah, we know what we can be passionate about, but we don't know exactly where we're gonna get in the future. Like, it's like I can say I'm gonna be a doctor in the future, but I could end up being you know, something else. So it doesn't. I feel like, yeah, that stress level that we get about like thinking of our future really shouldn't really, you know, be upon us when we stress about it. Really, honestly, we should just do what we're passionate about. Like, do what we're passionate about. Like, if you're interested in, you know, going to healthcare, maybe volunteering at a hospital, something like that. Or if you're interested in going to business marketing or something like that, just finding others to finding other real estate agents or something like that, shadow under. So just do what you're passionate about. Don't worry about where you want to go in your career. At the point, even if a relative force you, what do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Or your parents can also have that type of pressure on you, but just do what you're passionate about and let the path take you where you're going to be in the future.
So we're gonna transition to our adult portion now. So, okay, so now we're moving on to our adult segment / interview segment.
So we have Mr. Allred. He is my elementary school teacher.
So, Mr. Allred, like, what aspect of being an adult, like, were you most unprepared for?
Without question, the aspect of being adult I was least prepared for was working. Because I didn't really know, after all that education specifically, how I was going to make a living and still make something interesting out of my life.
So, like, what was the first job you got?
So in my day, we started working at like 12.
Real? Oh.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so you'll be shocked, but I worked in a Japanese restaurant.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
And so they spoke Japanese. I didn't understand what they were saying, but I washed dishes, and I worked ridiculously hard. It was child exploitation. There's no question. They have laws against it now.
So, like, you started working at age 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fujiya restaurant next to the outlet center, but it wasn't the outlet center back then.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, another, something interesting that we, as a group, discussed earlier is, like, the phrase friends come and go. Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think it changes over time because I think when you're young, you have these friends that are like soulmates. Like everybody remembers their best friends when they were young.
Yeah.
You do everything together, Like I would go off with my friends and we would play all day. And then, all right, see, I got to go home. I got to go eat dinner. I'll get in trouble. We'd go home, immediately call my friend on the phone. We were inseparable. And it's different when you're an adult, For one thing, those friends that were so tight with you, you were kids together. So the criteria are different. You're just playing because you both like to play soccer or whatever. But when you become more complex later on, suddenly you don't really see eye to eye. And you go different directions. So the friends come and go. When you're an adult, you tend to make friends who are more like you or at least have similar living situations. For example, when you're having kids, you tend to make friends who have kids because you have a built-in babysitter, their kids. So it really changes over time, but I think friends are more solid when you're young, and then as soon as you kind of hit puberty and then emerge into adulthood, I think then it really becomes, they really do start coming and going.
Do you think it's hard seeing friends that you were so close with, like, leave you or, like, become distant? Is it hard for you?
It depends on why they became distant, Like I've had friends that, we were in a dysfunctional relationship. So I'm kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, and I've been friends with people who are kind of depressive, and I bothered them because I was happy, so they'd always kind of push me down. Well, that was not difficult to say goodbye to that relationship. It's called addition by subtraction. But there are other ones that are more challenging, for sure. Mostly just because of all the history you have. And it feels like a little bit like you're saying goodbye to your past.
Yeah.
So I know you're a teacher, right? So, like, earlier we were talking about, like, who had the most impact in our lives. How do you think, like, you had an impact on the kids you teach and, like, as they go throughout their schooling?
Wow, es una buena pregunta, pero alguien puede contestar mejor que yo. I think it's a good question. You were my student,
Yeah.
and you said that I impacted you. I'm curious how.
You really made me appreciate learning. You would teach us to say, like, why are we learning this? And you would always have a great answer for when we asked you. And just, like, you were also a really great support system in the classroom. Like, I could always come to you and ask for your help. And then, like, in middle school, when I would walk over to your classroom and, like, just ask for advice. And then, like, yesterday, I came into your classroom and then I I'm grateful that I was comfortable enough and like you were comfortable enough to come into this podcast, and I'm really grateful. That's how you impacted me, and then you also like made me like really want to like come full circle because I help kids now at Alta Heights and I tutor them, and I hope that I can become a great like role model for them too.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we talked about, trying to find something in life to do professionally that satisfies you, but also gives you enough money to survive. And so I think each person, if you're that kind of person, needs to look at what is your skill set, what are you good at, right? And then what are your goals? So for me, my my primary goal was to impact people's life in a positive way, as much as I possibly could. Then I go, all right, but what am I good at? I don't know. I'm good at English. I'm good at languages, and I really like to travel a lot. So I learned some foreign languages and got into language teaching. So if that's your underlying purpose to impact lives, then you got to think beyond the curriculum. This curriculum is to make this part right. I want to make this part right. And the two are connected, because if you make this part right, guess what? This works way better. So you remember in my class, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of fun, if you love coming to school every day, your brain's going to be wide open and you'll learn much more quickly. Also, your affective filter, we call that in teaching, this filter that keeps out the information because they're stressed out, they're panicked, they're anxious, they're bored, they don't like the teacher, they feel like the teacher doesn't like them. All that's gone.
Yeah.
So the bandwidth gets bigger.
Okay, so one more question. Well, like, how did you handle that transition from being a dependent, like, teenager and child to, like, moving on as an adult and becoming independent?
I was just reading a book on this. In my generation, that wasn't really that difficult. I don't feel like it's the same anymore due to some pretty big changes in society and technology. But in my generation, people were much more likely to get their driver's license, for instance, like almost immediately. You turned 15 and a half when I was a kid, and the next day you had your appointment to get your driver's license. A lot of people, young people these days, don't get their driver's license until they're 21 or beyond that. So independence was something I feel like we were a bit more ready for in my generation than in the current generation. And that, I think, has a number of causes. One is that kids don't have as much free play anymore as children, due to the kind of illegalization of open spaces. Like if you try to go play at our school at NVLA now, it's all fenced off. You want to go hiking like I used to do in the Westwood Hills, except for a small part, it's also fenced off. So there aren't as many places to play, and then the way in which kids play is different. They play video games now. We went out and we, confronted challenges, and we made huge mistakes, and we learned from that, and we developed, and we matured from those failures and those obstacles. And I feel like we were I know statistically we were much less anxious and much more prepared to go into being adults. So it's a challenge, I think, for young people growing up kind of separated from other people.
For me, like, what do you think is an unspoken rule of the adult world?
An unspoken rule of the adult world. Well, for one thing, when you ask somebody about themselves, you're supposed to keep it superficial. If you go too far, they think you're being intrusive. But you can't be dismissive either. For example, in Japanese culture, you don't say, "How are you?" You say, "Genki desu ka?" And the person has to say, so that means, "Are you good?" And the person has to say, "Hi, genki." Yes, I'm good. There's no other option. Your whole world could be falling apart. Your wife just divorced you, you lost your job, but you have to say, "Hi, genki." So that kind of unspoken rule against getting too deep is something that does exist. Try it sometime. When somebody asks you in the grocery store, "How you doing?" Say, "Oh man, I had a terrible day. I woke up with a rash in the back of my neck." They'll be like, "What are you talking about? Get out of here."
And then, like, I'm just curious, like what seems obvious to you now, but was once difficult to to grasp as a child?
I think the most obvious thing, I wish I could tell my young self now, or back then that I know now, is just the relationship between hard work and empathy creating success. If those are the two pieces. If you work really, really hard, because that's a big piece for sure, and you have empathy, those two things, your chances of succeeding in any endeavor go through the roof. And that empathy, if you think about it, say you're a businessman, you're trying to sell stuff, right? You got to have empathy. You got to understand the person. What do you want? What do you need? What have you experienced before that makes you nervous? Like that's all empathy, and that's what makes a good businessman. If you're a teacher, think about how much empathy means. If you're a teacher, you're a kid coming from a broken home. I'm going to treat you differently than I would some kid coming from an Ivy League family that's rich and has high expectations and things like that. So empathy in any occupation is gonna vault you to the top if combined with ridiculously hard work. I mean, you got to work really hard to be successful. And because I didn't know, I was so scared when I was a kid about like, what am I going to do, and am I going to fail horribly? I don't think you can if you embrace those two elements.
How do you deal with working with people you dislike maturely? Because in high school, you can just tell the teacher, like, I can't work with them because they don't want to work with me. But like in a professional setting, you can't.
Oh man, that is a great question. I love my job. I love the part of my job where I work with kids. The part with adults can be dicey sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, because we have different, philosophies, and I tend to be kind of hard-headed, if I want to do something a certain way. But again, I think it goes back to what I was saying previously, that if you have empathy, and you have to be able to stand up for yourself and just say, I hear you, I understand this is something you need, I'm willing to compromise, but here's my line in the sand. And that was hard for me because I always tried to make people like me. At some point, you just got to be okay with people that you don't like not liking you.
And my final question is it hard forgiving yourself as an adult, and if it isn't, or like it is, like how do you do it?
Forgiveness is tricky. I don't really forgive myself for anything. What I do is I remember it, and then I try to use that as fuel to do better. So I hold on to that. It's like Kobe or Jordan used to do, like, oh, that guy beat me on a crossover dribble and dunked on me one time. I'm going to kill him the rest of my life every time I play against him. It's the same thing. Like, hold on to that, cherish that failure, and then use that to make yourself way more successful later on. I think there's a tendency to over-forgive. And I'm not saying you sit there and you hold on to it and make it, rule your life. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, let it go, but then have a part of you that recognizes when you're in a similar situation later on and go, oh, this is my chance. I'm going to do it right this time. Because I make mistakes. I say things to kids, and later on I go, that's the wrong thing to say. But I'm not going to forget that.
So you talked about like kids like learning from their mistakes, right? Do you think kids should have and younger people should have that competitiveness and that drive to keep pursuing their careers, pursuing their dreams, and not let one person stop them from pursuing that?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have, a competitive drive. I think competition's a challenging topic. I was a really competitive kid. I was in sports. I played basketball for this school, led the team in scoring.
Okay.
And, that got me a long way. I was popular and fairly popular. And, people liked me because I was good at that thing. But then when I transferred that competitiveness, I figured out later on that it can cause resentment in friendships if you're constantly competitive. Like, I'm going to beat you in everything. I'm better. And you kind of have to just let that go. If you want to be competitive, the best application of that is be competitive with yourself, like I was talking about earlier. Like I was okay before, I'm going to be better this time, as opposed to being competitive with other people. But yeah, in general, I think competitiveness is an important characteristic for successful people, whether it's with other people or with yourself. But it has to be in balance so you're not alienating every single person around you. Again, empathy.
Empathy.
How does
So,
that make that person feel if you win every time?
would you say being an adult is having like empathy?
Well, if you're a successful adult, right? There's lots of adults without empathy. We see them in society all the time. Go on the internet. But like, if you want to be happy, like, I'm a Buddhist, and what we believe is in karma, right? So everything you create comes back to you, whether good or bad. So treat people with empathy and kindness. 100% of that comes back to you. It may not be right now, but it's all coming back.
Yeah.
You want to be happy?
Yeah, I agree with that. I like, especially like kind of like off topic, but like whenever like I'm driving, I hope like I'm a good driver to other people. Like I let other people pass it that way in hopes like someone else lets me drive, like lets me go in front. It's like that's what like yeah, I do
Yeah.
for like empathy, I guess.
Driving karma.
Driving karma. I
Yeah.
love driving
It's
karma.
very Buddhist.
Yep.
Yeah, I also like growing up. I also like because my mom really put forth empathy, and she really instilled it with me and my brothers. I just like hearing another person talk about how important empathy is. Kind of like relieves me and kind of makes me re-believe in like the human race. Because I've seen a lot of like
Yeah.
bad people, and like you hear a lot about bad people in the news. But just hearing someone else, especially like an adult, talk about empathy as well, like really, really assures me, like there's people out there that actually truly like are kind people, kind to like us kids especially, that wants us to succeed, that wants us to keep moving forward. So I think that just like really assures me.
It's medicine. And in this current period of tribalism, where you have this black and white view of the world, like you're on my side or you're the enemy, there's nothing in between. We need to have empathy, not just for the people who are similar to us, but the people who are different, right? Because you got to understand where they're coming from too. And as soon as you start doing that, like, why do you say that? And oh, I can kind of see your point, but how do you respond to this? And instead of just saying, oh, you're for him, I don't like you. Then you start healing the world, and that's what we need. Empathy is where it starts. Empathy and compassion. If you can do that, you can make an impact. And then, like, if you're a young person and you're looking about, into what you want to do in life, again, look at what you do well and what you're interested in accomplishing kind of in your life, and how those two things come together.
Okay. Well,
Do you have anything else?
no, I'm good. I'm just grateful that you're here, and I hope that like you're glad to be here because it's truly like great seeing you again, because you really are one of the greatest teachers, and I hope there was more teachers like you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in your presence. You were one of my favorite students.
Thank
You're in
you.
the Hall of Fame.
You heard that. You guys
Okay.
heard that.
It's on the internet now.
It's on the internet now, so if anyone from NVLA sees this,
They're all
you
going to
know.
say tomorrow, Mr. Allred, am I one of your favorite students too?
And he's gonna say no.
Nope.
All right, well, that's time. But thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you.